Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm joined by Joyce Ng. Joyce, welcome to the night of living dangerously. Warning, contents may cause drowsiness. Do not drive or operate heavy machinery.
This feels like a big chill, though.
Talking about the 1984 Oscars. An Oscars playback, Joyce. The 56th annual Oscars. What a time.
Um, Endless.
Oh my goodness.
It was as long as Shirley MacLaine's career.
I'm just going to read the lead to the recap from the New York Times, which I'm sure you also maybe pulled up. Despite reports that this year's festivities would be streamlined, possibly enough to keep the entire event within a framework of 3 hours, the 56th Annual Academy Awards presentation from the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion of the Los Angeles Music Center began at 9 p.m. and ran 45 minutes beyond midnight East Coast time on ABC. Johnny Carson, the host, evidently sensing the affair was beginning to resemble a fundraising gala on public television, announced, "Okay, folks, we're into our 4th hour. Let's check the tote boards and see how much money we've raised."
Yeah, and then when he closed the show, which wasn't actually the end of the show, he was like, "See you next year," which is coming up soon.
Just an endless
This
show.
was on April 9th, 1984.
Yes.
It did feel like December 31st by the end.
Oh my God.
And I
It's
watched this all
so
last night in like 2
long.
hours, basically.
30 minutes longer than the previous year, and you felt every minute.
There was just like a lot. Um, a lot of look backs
A
to the
lot. So
30s.
this was definitely a let's celebrate Hollywood and have a great time doing it. So the opening is literally Shirley Temple for seemingly no reason, just up there for an incredible amount of time.
Yeah, they brought her out to talk about her juvenile award and what like her life was like back in 1934. And then she's like, look at this like mini Oscar I won in 1935 at the 7th Academy
Oh my
Awards."
God. She throws
And
to
they did that
Ginger
before like
Rogers.
every single um category, basically. Just brought out these legends,
So
right?
part of me was like, this is pretty cool because, like, man, they bring out Cary Grant. You know who's great? Cary Grant. He comes
Cary
out
Grant, no intro, like that perfect. Like he doesn't need
standing
an intro.
standing ovation, fantastic, right? Just like love Cary Grant. Gene Kelly, I thought actually that one was great. I already forgot which award he presents, but he gets his Oscar back. I thought that was like
Yeah,
really
he
touching.
because his house burned down, so they gave
Yes.
him a replacement Oscar. No, there was like it was like nice moments, but it just stretched the ceremony, and I kind of
Oof.
it feels like they padded the show because they there was this like notion that the year in film 1983 was uninteresting.
Yeah. Well, partially probably because it was in terms of endearment comes in with 11 nominations,
Yeah,
clearly
there's
going
no
to dominate.
suspense,
The top films at the box office, a few represented here at the Oscars, but it was Return of the Jedi, Joyce.
of course.
Terms of Endearment, number 2 at the box office. I love these years when it's just like great drama, just number 2. I guess is that
Well,
Oppenheimer?
will that ever happen again?
Oppenheimer, I guess, right? Is Terms of Endearment Oppenheimer?
No, absolutely not.
Flashdance,
Iconic
uh,
film.
Trading Places, just absolutely unhinged comedy. One of the funniest
And
comedies
those
ever.
are all Paramount.
Great time to be Paramount. Not so
Mhm.
much this year.
This year, 2024.
Yes.
Yes.
War Games, Octopussy, Sudden Impact, which is go ahead, make my day. That Johnny makes that joke in the monologue or one of the interstitials. Staying Alive,
The
Mr.
sequel to Saturday Night
Yes,
Fever.
Mr. Mom, which I feel like you would be a
My
big
fave,
fan of,
obviously.
and a fantastic movie coming to Criterion this summer, Risky Business, Joyce.
Yeah. A nice top 10, I would say.
Very
Like
strong.
variety, a lot of classics here.
Yeah,
Yep.
very strong. Uh, and kind of reflected, I guess, in the nominations, right? Like Terms of Endearment, 11 nominations. We didn't mention The Right Stuff, but that's another big movie, right?
Great
8.
film.
Fanny and Alexander with 6. Tender Mercies with 5. Return the Jedi with 5. The movie Yentl with 5. I feel like that has aged well. People like respect it now more than maybe they did then. Silkwood with 5 and The Dresser with 5.
Yeah. Um, but I will read a line from this article in the New York Times
Yes.
on October 19th, 1983. This is kind of like a just sort of like like little bullet points of like happenings in Hollywood. The headline is Return of the Budget Buster Movie. So it's
Mm.
like a bunch of random stuff in here. And then under the heading Oscar fortune telling, accurate predictions about Academy Awards may be impossible in October. After all, most of the Christmas movies have not been screened yet. Some of them are not even finished, but hunches and or extrasensory perception
Mm.
have brought us surprising consensus among Hollywood executives who like to play fortune teller.
Hmm.
They agree, first, that it has been a bad year for art and
Wow.
believe that no movie released so far will be nominated for Best Picture. So again, at this point, it's October 19th, 1983.
Yes.
And then what we'll get in the Best Picture lineup, two of the Best Picture nominees were released before October 19th.
Yes.
So, but yeah, this was like the vibe of 1983,
A-
apparently.
And the funny thing is, maybe this is why we've done now 4 of these, right? Right? Or 3? Is this our 4th one or 3rd one? 4th
This is
one.
our fourth one because you count 80.
Right. I gotta say, this is my favorite list of movies that we've seen so far. So
I
I guess
was
I'm
just telling you
anti-art.
before, like, I feel like I have a shorter list of films I've seen of like 1983 films, and they're all like mostly mainstream and like basic films that everyone's heard of.
And that's why I'm like, fuck yeah, this rules. So I wrote down here, I wrote down, now this one was not mainstream at the time, but is like a fave for me, and I think a lot of others. Martin Scorsese's still talking about how people hated this movie, The King of
Oh,
Comedy.
he will never forget. He will never forget or forgive.
Fantastic movie. I saw that first in college, probably, and really liked it,
I don't
obviously.
remember when I first saw. I mean, a lot of these movies again, I haven't seen in a really long time
They
too.
did a few years ago at this point. It must have been for the 30th anniversary, I guess, right? So maybe 2013. They did a reunion at the Tribeca Film Festival, and it was Scorsese, De Niro, and Jerry Lewis still alive. And it was one of the funniest panels ever. And they brought Sandra Bernhard on through video, like she wasn't there. She sent in a video and just absolutely napalmed uh, Jerry Lewis. It's like so good. I'm actually looking this up because I remember I wrote about it. I was like, oh my God, this is so good.
I
She
can't
just
believe we weren't prepared with this
I
already.
just thought of it now. I should have been prepared. Uh,
First, you don't read Inside Oscar, and you don't have your own article.
this was what Sandra Bernhard said at the time. From the video, a giant Sandra Bernhard behind Marty and Bobby and Jerry Lewis on this stage of the down in Tribeca. What is that? The BMCC, Joyce? Do you know that venue?
Mhm. Yes.
Marty, Bobby, it was just yesterday that we took over New York City in the summer of 1981, and the day you discovered me was the day my life changed and everything fell apart. Look at where I am now. Nowhere. Thanks a lot, you son of a bitch. Hey, remember when Jerry Lewis called me fish lips? That was a great moment on the set. The next day, he brought me a handwritten apology letter. I coveted that letter, but by the end of the day, it was missing. I figured he probably stole it back so no one could accuse him of ever apologizing. Look at the world we're living in now. It's a shit show. Whatever we predicted in The King of Comedy went so far beyond our wildest expectations that it seems almost homespun. We started filming on the night of my 26th birthday, June 6, 1981. What a birthday present. It's a gift that keeps on giving. I love you all. I wish I could be there, but I am. Sandra Bernhard, fucking undefeated. Just like so good.
It is nice that I mean, obviously I wasn't around back then, but it's nice that the film's been reappraised since then.
Certainly is like I think consider one of like Scorsese's
It was
better.
ahead of its
It
time.
was way ahead of its time, and this stuff in the movie is just great. So that one I love. Another movie I really loved as a youth, but haven't seen recently, though now it's back in vogue because it's on Broadway. Joyce, The Outsiders,
Oh, yes. Tony nominee.
Tony nominee, great show. My wife
Yeah,
saw
I
it;
haven't
she
seen
really
that
loved
show.
it. I haven't seen it at this moment when we're recording, but I
Yeah,
maybe
but
I
yeah,
will in the
a
future.
classic. So,
Great book, great show. Flashdance, like we
wait,
mentioned. I
did
was
you read the
never.
book?
I did read the book because you had
Oh,
to. It
wow.
was assigned in high school. I had to read it.
You had to. Had
Yeah,
to.
stay gold. I mean, it's assigned. You have to. I only grew up realizing, oh, I don't actually have to read this shit. I could
Did
figure
you
it.
like when did you discover like Cliff Notes and stuff?
Probably in high school, but they were never. They were fine. But I was like, I just get the gist of it. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, I could figure it out. Nowadays, it'd be so easy. Just Wikipedia.
Well, it's just like AI now, like kids
Oh,
Like,
kids use AI now. I would never
yeah.
do that. I would just figure it out on my own. I could bullshit my way through anything.
Oh, I
Um,
love BSing. That's 90% of life.
oh my
You
god.
have to BS to get through life.
Uh, Flashdance, not a huge fan of this one. I've seen it, but not like when I was like, oh, I love Flashdance.
Um, Whenever I hear Flashdance now, I just think of like the Friends scene
Yeah,
when Joey is like trying to explain the plot of like Flashdance and Footloose, and he like mixes them up, and like Chandler keeps correcting him like what's happening. Or no, it was Flashdance, but he was just like saying like the details were wrong,
right.
and Chandler kept correcting him.
Good.
So
Other ones I wrote down: Return of the Jedi, potentially the first movie I ever saw in the theater.
I don't even know what the first movie I saw in the theater was.
I definitely, I mean, I have like a vague memory of seeing it in Manhasset,
Sure,
and like, so I would have been 83, 5, maybe 5 at this point, so 4 or 5. War Games,
sure.
Trading Places, which obviously I did not see as a 5-year-old, but oh my god, is it so funny? And Jamie Lee Curtis, God bless her for winning an
BAFTA
Oscar
winner
for
Jamie Lee Curtis.
God bless her for winning an Oscar for Everything Everywhere, but she maybe could have won for War Game. I mean, for Trading
War
Places, because
Games.
she's so good in Trading Places. It's so funny. It remains hilarious.
Yeah, like all like the like shit she took last year and even still now, for her win. I'm like, she's a great actress.
So good.
And she has won accolades before Everything Everywhere,
I, I gotta
including
say,
a BAFTA.
Eddie in Trading Places, truly one of the funniest comedy performances of all time. I just think he's so good, and Dan Aykroyd matching him beat for beat. It's so funny. It's still funny. Still a movie I would watch now if it's on like Tubi. I'll like put it on. Still great.
Yeah,
Uh,
I haven't seen this in a while either. So
Good. Superman 3, Joyce. That one always freaked me out.
why?
I think it's with the robot. Isn't this one with Richard Pryor and the robot and stuff? Isn't this Superman 3?
I mean, I've only seen this once when I was a kid, so sure. It's
Uh,
not like I don't really enjoy this one, so but
here's a YouTube. This is why I think it freaked me out. Here's a YouTube. I just googled this. Superman 3. Computer turns ugly woman into freaky robot. So there you go. It definitely stuck with me for my whole life.
you're like a scaredy cat, aren't you?
Oh, I hate scary stuff. Yeah, this one really scarred me though. Creepy cyborg in Superman 3. Oh yeah, the image is even.
Meanwhile, I'm watching Silence of the Lambs at 6. Like,
So Superman 3, seen it, not a love. Not I actually don't really have a great fondness for any of the Superman movies with Christopher Reeve, but
yeah, I
I've
mean,
seen
I
them.
I remember watching all of them when I was a kid, and it's like super. I like of the DC heroes, I prefer Batman.
Me too.
I'm not a Superman person,
Not really.
really. So
Can't wait for James Gunn's Superman though. Let's go.
sure,
I wrote down Twilight Zone the movie.
I have not seen that.
Oh my god, Joyce, it rules. Uh, Notable because of the terrible tragedy on the set, obviously that left
Yes, of
Vic
course,
Morrow
I know
dead.
all about that.
But the Spielberg segment is really good, and the opening actually is my favorite with Albert Brooks and Dan Aykroyd. Fantastic. John Lithgow is great in it. It's just a good time at the movies. Directed by John Landis, obviously now infamous for this movie. Steven Spielberg, Joe Dante, and George Miller.
And a ton of people in it.
So many.
Everyone.
The opening of Dan Aykroyd and Albert Brooks is great because he turns into a monster. It's like very scary. You can actually just watch that on YouTube. It's a great segment. Very enjoyable. And
R.I.P. Rick Morrow.
yes, very enjoyable. Other than the horrible tragedy that was that
The
left
real life
because of
tragedy
the
when
real
Jennifer
life tragedy that
Connelly's
was
dad died,
that left
and two innocent children died.
left two children dead and Vic Morrow dead, and was a result of probably negligence or carelessness on the set.
But you know what? Real life tragedy inspired movie I did watch.
Which one?
Star 80.
Oh yeah, I have that written down too. Another good
Mhm.
one.
Yeah. Overlooked,
Do you feel like that's also getting coming back in the
reappraised. Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
uh Jaws 3D, Joyce?
Sure.
Didn't get to see it in
It's
3D.
always just the first Jaws for me.
Yeah. I love, actually that's not true. I love when we get to this year, I'll do it. Jaws The Revenge, Jaws 4 with Michael Caine. I'm
That
Michael
paid for
Caine.
his house.
It
Okay.
paid for his house and it's fucking great. Love it. Uh National Lampoon's Vacation, Joyce, I wrote
Of
down.
course.
Oh my God, so funny. Just an all time. Chevy Chase, so funny. Completely undefeated in this.
I
Uh,
don't like I've seen very few of the National Lampoons, but obviously this one I've seen.
I've seen this one so many times. It's never not funny. He's so fun. He is so funny. This is like peak Chevy, I feel like. I mean, the funny thing is I probably saw European Vacation first because it was on HBO earlier. Like this I came to later in life and I was like, "Oh man, this is great."
I
Uh
love that when you watch like some like out of order and
yeah,
then you have to go back to
right.
watch the first thing.
Great. Risky Business, great
Of
movie.
course.
Fantastic. This is a good year for Tom Cruise because you have Outsiders, Losing It, Risky Business, and maybe one more, I
Oh,
think.
All the Right Moves?
All the right
Did
moves.
you
Four
watch
Tom
that?
Cruise movies.
Yeah, he plays a Serbian football player. I forget what's his name, like Stefan like
Oh,
Djordjevic, but like that's how like I learned to pronounce so many like names, like non-English names, international names from movies and also like sports and stuff. So like when like Novak Djokovic was like rising in tennis like 20 years ago, I was like, oh, that's like Tom Cruise's character's last name. His name's him. And then his like one of his younger brothers' name is like George. Um, so yeah, he had a what it was 3 movies this year? Yeah.
or
This is
four,
a
right?
breakout year.
Outsiders.
Oh yeah, 4.
Uh, All the Right Moves directed by Michael Chapman, who you might know is one of the great cinematographers of all time. It's like what a year! I love when this. I love like looking back at these and it was like, oh man, like these. This is just great. Uh, what else did I wrote down the movie? Did you ever see this one? Easy Money, Rodney and Joe Pesci.
Yes.
I rewatched it last year on a lark. I think
Of
probably
course you did.
inspired by the Pete Davidson show, Bupkis.
No longer coming back.
A shame because it was pretty funny. Easy Money is just fucking
And
awful.
JJL's in this one, too.
Yes, it's awful. But I greatly enjoyed watching it. Rodney is they're just so funny, and it really feels like proto Adam Sandler Happy Madison stuff. Sure. What else did I write down? Another one that did you ever see this one? Strange Brew,
No.
Dave Thomas and who? Rick Moranis, Canadian. It's very Canadian. It was like a beer thing.
I could kind of get that.
Get that from the thing.
Yeah.
These were their popular SCTV characters, Bob and Doug McKenzie. Anyway, I saw this a lot when I was a kid. I think it must have been on. What else did I write down? The Right Stuff, Deal of the Century, which is a William Friedkin movie, again with Chevy Chase that I remember renting at the video store, thinking it would be quite amusing, and it's just not. It's not. It's a drama basically.
That's like Gregory Hines too, right? I've never
Yes,
seen it.
I think
Yeah.
it's Gregor Hines and Sigourney Weaver are the three. A Christmas Story is a very popular movie for a lot of people.
I'm not a Christmas Story person either. Like I've seen it obviously, but I don't that's not I will never watch it again.
I'm not into it either.
Sorry.
It's so weird. Like what era of people are usually supposed to be
I
into
don't
it?
know, but
My
it's like
age?
every like holiday season, people are like, "Oh, they're so excited for the Christmas Story marathon on like TBS," and I'm like, "Oh God, you're just taking away my friends' reruns." Like,
Where's Christmas Vacation? I never
I'm
liked this
like,
movie either.
show like while you were sleeping instead.
Oh,
And
another great one. Yeah, I just never
but
was into it.
I've just never been into a Christmas Story. I don't
No,
know.
same. The other two I wrote down and see if you have any more. I had The Day After, which was a TV movie about the nuclear holocaust. That was like pretty upsetting.
Well, yeah, like Testament. That was the TV movie
Right,
turned theatrical.
right.
Oscar nomination for Jane Alexander.
And then Scarface.
Of course.
Fantastic.
Um, do you see Octopussy?
I never really did, I don't think. I was trying to rack my brain. I feel like I missed a lot of these Roger Moore Bonds. I did see it.
Interesting.
Funny is that there's another Bond movie this year, which is Never Say Never Again, where they bring Connery back.
Mhm.
I did see that one. I'm gonna guess has not aged well. Just gonna say.
I did watch that again, like after Sean died. My friends and I were just watching his movies.
Sure.
So I've seen that one I guess it's not even that recently because it's been like 4 years basically. But
Isn't it funny that there was like a Bond movie with Bond, but not like
uh, well, that's the whole thing when they replace Bonds and they come back and stuff.
amazing?
Cujo, you're a scaredy cat. So I don't know if you've seen that
Never
one.
saw Cujo. Way too scary. Not seen a fucking crazed dog movie. Also, Christine would be in that one with the crazed car. A lot of these crazed items coming to
I
life.
love that you can't handle horror or anything scary, but you love Scream because you just look up what happens first before
Oh
you see.
yeah. Well, Scream is like because it's like I like the meta-ness of it, and it's funny. I actually like I was really psyched. I still haven't as we're recording this. I still haven't seen the movie Abigail just because it didn't like couldn't I don't know. I just didn't get around to it. But I'm like I feel like I would really enjoy Abigail because I like those guys' sense of humor and it looks funny but scary. Like I like funny scary.
Sure. Um, Under Fire. Th-
Which is that one?
This is Nick Nolte, Gene Hackman. It's about the Nicaraguan Revolution. It's
Sure.
it's it's a um a photojournalism movie
Yeah. I'm out on photojournalism movies.
because of Civil War.
No, I guess that was one I liked, but I'm like this one. I'm just like I like this. Feels like it would be like a John Borman movie. It's Roger
It,
Spottiswoode, but
it's a good movie, and Nick and Gene are good.
good. Okay,
Um, Rumblefish.
Rumblefish. I've seen another S.E. Hinton adaptation.
Yeah. Did you ever see Something Wicked This Way Comes?
No,
I don't even know how I saw this. It's like a Macbeth adaptation, basically. Not adaptation, but it's like the titles taken from it. And it's like Jonathan Pryce, Jason Robards. Um, yeah. I don't like
okay,
I had no memory, or like I that me having seen this movie was like erased from my mind until I saw the title on Wikipedia under
great.
American films of 1983.
Love
Um,
list of American films, 1983.
yeah. This house, it sparks my memory. Scarface we mentioned, Silkwood, which I feel like that is probably one of my preferred Meryl performances of this decade.
It's actually quite good. I feel like
Yeah.
I was thinking I was like not a movie I've seen in 30 years maybe. You know what I mean? Like I've not seen
Yeah,
this
I
movie.
haven't seen it in a while either, but I think it's probably one of my top nominations for
It,
her.
is it possible I still hear references to like Silkwood showers? Like I feel like this is
Yeah.
like it has been like appropriated into culture basically.
Mhm. Did you see Two of a Kind? That was a John Travolta, Olivia Newton-John
I did not
reunion.
see Two of a Kind.
Not great.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about this one I actually have never seen. And I know people will be like, "Oh, The Keep," which is Michael Mann movie.
I've never seen that either.
I feel like people are like pretend to have seen it or maybe they actually have. It's a mix probably. They're like, oh, "I love The Keep."
And we mentioned this last week, Curse of the Pink Panther.
Yes. Sure.
Just a lot of Blake.
Blake, great time for being Blake.
Mhm.
How about Sudden Impact? Have you actually seen that Dirty Harry movie?
Yeah, of course.
Trying to think what else. I'll give you one I never seen, but I remember seeing the video box all the time because it was a great video box. DC Cab.
And
Mr. T.
why did you never rent it?
I don't know. Maybe because it was a rated R. I don't have any idea why I never rented this, but it was like Mr. T on the cover holding a cab door. I mean, like it's DC Cab. When these guys hit the streets, guess what hits the fan? That's what it says.
Is that available anywhere? You should
I'm gonna
watch it
look it up.
now.
I'm gonna look it up now. DC Cab streaming. You could buy it on YouTube for $4.
Hmm.
So after this, we could go do it.
That's what you should have watched for.
I guess so. Here, I'll read the wiki summary. Aspiring taxi driver Albert Hockenberry, Adam Baldwin, arrives in Washington, D.C. to work for a service run by family friend Harold Oswald, Max Gale, whose uniformly eccentric employees drive ancient cabs. When a priceless violin is found in one of the cars, the $10,000 reward money needed to keep the business afloat is stolen by Harold's bitter wife, Myrna, Ann DeSalvo. Determined to save the company, Harold pledges his life savings toward the business. Love when a movie is describing the wife as bitter wife. You know, the misogyny is going to be just at prime levels.
When are wives not bitter in films?
When did it happen? Even now, I would say we're still fighting for that, right? I don't
Even like
know.
post Me Too.
Yeah. Would you say, would somebody describe Kitty Oppenheimer as the bitter wife of Robert Oppenheimer? I'm sure they would, right?
Well, yeah, because she's drunk, you know.
She drunks and hates her kids.
She doesn't want to take care of her kids.
Uh, so yeah, so this is I was like looking at this and I'm like, man, this is a great year. I feel like to me, this is a fun year because I like a lot of these movies.
But listen, it's been a bad year for art.
I disagree because I actually think Terms of Endearment is like one of the great movies of all time. I think it is so good.
Well, I mean, again, at this point, it was like it hasn't been
Hadn't
out
come out,
uh,
right? I know.
uh, up until October 19th,
But do you think they
1983.
would even consider it good art?
Well, they did. They liked it. It had great reviews when it opened. So that's what they were waiting for.
Okay.
That was the whole point of this. So,
Right.
because the next graph here, I'll read it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Do the next one.
Um, so a few mention Ingmar Bergman's Fanny Alexander wistfully, but with the knowledge that in the last 55 years, the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences has only nominated 4 foreign language movies for its top prize. Jean Renard's Grand Illusion in 1938, Costa Gavras' Z in 1969, Jean Troel's Emigrants in 1972, and Mr. Bergman's Cries and Whispers in 1973. None of them won. Without hesitation, most executives rattle off the names of the following 5 unreleased movies, which they believe will be the probable nominees. Bob Fosse's Star 80, the story of a starlet, Dorothy Stratton, who was murdered by her husband. The Right Stuff, Terms of Endearment, starring Shirley MacLaine and Deborah Winger as mother and daughter. Silkwood, Mike Nichols' version of the death of Karen Silkwood, who claimed she was poisoned by plutonium at the company for which she worked as a laboratory technician. And most surprising of all, because it is a movie that has been rumored to be in trouble, Yentl with Barbara Streisand as a yeshiva boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Um, I gotta say, I'm not the person to talk Barbara Streisand movies. I feel like because I just am not.
Yeah, I'm not, I mean, like, I love and respect Babs, but I'm not a like a Barbara disciple.
Now, if Jordan Hoffman, our friend, was here, my friend, who I know you know also,
Text him right now.
I should text him right now. I'm gonna text him live here and just say, Jordan, give me a brief thing on the Yentl because I know
He
Jordan
could give
loves
us
it.
some stuff for, when we get to Best Director and Best Actress.
I'm texting right now. Hang on.
Okay.
Bring.
Here, I'll continue reading the Yentl
Please.
stuff in this. Okay, so how does MGM/UA's Yentl get mentioned as a possible Academy Award nominee when 8 months ago it was considered a mess? Quote, the word is good, said one executive not with MGM UA. The word about a movie comes first from the studio that made it. It's not that a studio executive's enthusiasm about his new movie can be trusted. Executives will try to hide the truth about a bad film from the press, the public, and executives at other studios, but they will sometimes be more or less truthful when talking to friends, particularly if the movie was authorized by their predecessors. Yentl went into production under the former head of UA, David Belgelman. Therefore, the new management team at MGM UA does not need to be defensive about the film. Secondly, Yentl was screened 4 weeks ago for selected theater owners. The grapevine quickly carries news of whether exhibitors think a movie is good or bad, and something quite different, whether it will be a hit or a flop. The word on Yentl was good.
Hmm.
So, I mean,
I
this is
guess
all stuff like we experience and know, but maybe like the general public may not be aware of like how the word gets around or is generated, buzz.
right.
Yeah.
Um, did it do well? I guess it made 68 million worldwide.
What was its budget?
It says 12. This is on
Sure.
Wikipedia, so you know it's right.
Yeah. We don't need to fact check that.
Yentl was successful at the box office, opening number 5 in the U.S. upon limited release, stayed in the top 10 for 9 weeks, peaking number 3. Film went on to gross 40 million in the U.S. and Canada, one of the 20 highest grossing movies of the year. 69% on Rotten Tomatoes. Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 out of 4 stars. Yentl is a movie with a great middle. The middle 100 minutes of the movie are charming and moving and surprisingly interesting. Pauline Kael wrote, it has a distinctive and surprising spirit. It's funny, delicate, and intense all at the same time.
A great middle.
Yeah.
Is that what you want? You know
We
me.
say
I'm
no.
like beginning and end. So, um,
I got Jordan's text here. Do you want to do it now? I can do it quick since we're on Yentl.
Sure, sure.
Jordan, give me a brief reason why Yentl is great. It's very funny! Exclamation point. Location, cinematography in check. And I said, best Babs movie? And he said, best she directed, period.
Golden Globe winner, best director, Babs.
So we'll get to that being snubbed here.
Well, best picture, I guess we could just start there.
Well, do you want to do best picture or should we do the show? Because I had like a lot of fun stuff about the show.
Well, I mean, we kind of did the opening already.
I'll just say this. I didn't have a
we
lot
we could do the red carpet. We didn't do the red carpet yet.
Very few. I wrote down nominee Amy Irving with director Steven Spielberg.
Yes, because they were together then.
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't as fun, but I did the gorgeous Christy Brinkley.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
Flashdance star Jennifer Beal, singular. Roger Moore, alias 007.
Radiant Diane Cannon, I have.
Yeah.
And this one just made me laugh. Co-presenters tonight, Tommy Tune and Twiggy. And then a pause.
I mean, that was true.
It's true. And then a pause. And Cher, nominated actress. Just all in the same, like, sentence, basically.
Yeah, it wasn't as fun. And then the opening, it was like Quincy Jones, musical director, and all the score nominees.
I tell you, I always write stuff down live, so it's like I'm slacking you. Here's what I wrote. Quincy Jones conducting the orchestra and nominated songs with stills, LOL. It was interminable. They're just throwing still photos up of these movies. Why is this in thing? Who thought that?
I listen, again, like I love that they're, performing the scores.
Sure.
But the production value was not great.
Oh my God. It was like a screenshot. What is the 83
also, like, you don't it would have been better if they just didn't have a screen of anything. Just
Nothing.
like let it be the music,
And then
and then Gene Allen, the president.
Wow.
That was bad. Sorry
Where's
to Gene.
Faye? Can we bring her back?
Faye, come back, please. Even though you called that you're diverse and it wasn't, but
this was diverse in that Gene is terrible. We have a diverse bunch of Oscar presidents because Gene sucks at this. Oh my God.
I was like, oh God, I was like, someone save him, please.
This reminded me. I was thinking of Faye because of Hacks, which is now over when you're watching this months ago, and nobody's talking about it probably at this point. Maybe they still are. But when Jimmy's like, they're looking for a diverse host. Old. Yeah. That's gonna be our thing. It's old. It's diverse.
No, because he's like, well, like old is diverse. Yeah.
So good. So good. I gotta say, so this is, I think, the 5th time Johnny hosted, right?
Yes.
I was legitimately, not even kidding you, I was howling laughing at this monologue. I thought it's so funny.
The monologue was so great. I think my favorite was the Brooke Shields burn.
Oh my God.
So he says that Brooke is going to star in The Right Stuff too, as the first woman astronaut, and in her first big scene, Brooke takes her first untethered walk away from her mother.
I was like howling laughing. I was like, man, hot take. You know who was really funny? Johnny Carson. Like, oh my God.
I felt like he was getting warmed up. You could feel him like revving up because the first couple minutes were like kind of slow, and then it was getting progressively hotter and hotter.
Yeah, I just wrote down a few. I'll just read them quick. A thrill to appear somewhere without being subpoenaed because he was getting divorced, Joyce.
Yes.
This one, I was like grown but funny. You can always tell when it's Academy Awards time out here. Even the ladies of the evening on Sunset Boulevard have been carrying signs for the last month that say, "For your consideration." Got a huge laugh. To keep the acceptance speeches from running too long, we have Clint Eastwood waiting in the wings, ready to come out here and say, "Go ahead, make my day." And he does the Clint impression. President Reagan has okayed prayer at award shows. Topical. And then another one we talked about. It might be wise to retitle the British Open. This is the biggest British invasion since the Falkland Islands.
When he said that, I was like, Johnny, this is like the 4th year running, basically.
It's every year they're doing it.
Every year. It's basically the entire Best Actor category, or 80% of it.
This one I found really funny and still relevant. Tonight's winner is next year's Question in Trivial Pursuit.
It's true. I also enjoyed now people say there are too many award shows. I really don't know, but I do believe the Lifetime Achievement Award for Ricky Schroeder does seem a little pushy.
So good. It's
so many layers.
It's so good.
40 years later, so many layers.
And then talking about James Bond in case he's captured, because Sean Connery's like, I love Sean Connery, but he's back playing James Bond. In case he's captured by the enemy, he now carries a cyanide suppository. Heyo. It's so funny. It was so good.
He's like, yeah, definitely the best part of the show.
I would say, even if you're like, I've never watched this or I don't care, should watch. And the opening is, like we said, deadly, because you got to skip through Gene. You got this terrible red carpet.
The
Quincy
video on
Jones.
YouTube is 25 minutes, so you could just skip to Johnny's monologue.
Watch the Johnny thing. It is howlingly funny. I was truly laughing out loud many times during this monologue. It's so good.
I know, and then he ends up, he was like, "Oh, for the first time, you won't be subjected to hearing about the voting procedures, because this is when they start just the credit scroll of how
Yes.
voting works."
Yes.
The end.
Which is a shame. That means the last one was the Micro Machines guy, but
That's his legacy. So
great legacy. So I guess we could go into the awards, Joyce. Best Picture was Terms of Endearment. 11 nominations, 5 wins, 3 Oscars for James L. Brooks, including Best Picture. The other nominees, as we're here, were The Big Chill, The Dresser, The Right Stuff, and Tender Mercies.
yes. And so the 2 nominees that were released before October 19th, 1983 were Tender Mercies, which came out March 4th, and The Big Chill, which came out September 28th.
Right.
And Tender Mercies had great reviews. But it was like a flop, and Robert Duvall has said it's like because like they don't know how to market like country music movies and stuff. They
Yes.
don't understand country music. But yeah, it got in, and Right Stuff. I really like the Right Stuff. The surprise was The Dresser.
Yes.
British
The
Invasion.
British Invasion, Joyce.
Yes.
Falkland Islands.
Yeah, so this is the New York Times's nomination, the story on nominations morning on February 17th, 1984. Headline: Endearment top Oscar nomination. So let 11 blah blah blah, and then says the major surprises included the spurning of 2 big star performances and the nominating of several specialized low budget movies.
Wow.
All costing less than 5 million and most less than 4 million for 2 or more major awards. The low budget films include Reuben, Tender Mercies, Fanny Alexander, Educating Rita, and in particular, The Dresser. In addition to a nomination for Best Picture, The Dresser, which tells the story of the last days of an aging English actor and his relationship with the man who runs his backstage life, received nominations for its 2 leading actors, Albert Finney and Tom Courtenay, for its screenplay, and in perhaps the day's biggest surprise, for its director, Peter Yates. So, I mean, we'll get to director in a little bit, but yeah. No one saw The Dresser coming.
No. A lot of snubs for director.
Yeah.
That said, here for Best Picture, just obviously Terms of Endearment going to win.
Yeah, it was a done deal, and like no suspense. I feel like this is kind of like the I mean, outside of like Chariots of Fire winning, like most of the winners so far this decade is just like, oh, obviously. You know, like even like
Yeah.
Ordinary People, like you might like I especially nowadays, people might not have wanted Ordinary People to win, but like that was winning.
Yeah.
And Cherries was a surprise when Gandhi was obviously winning, and now Terms of Endearment is obviously winning.
Not a lot of suspense, no surprises.
Yeah.
Terms of Endearment, like
I love that movie. I haven't seen that in a while either.
Which one?
Terms.
Oh my god, I just watched it recently again. It is absolutely one of my favorite movies ever made. I think it is.
How
like
much do you cry
perfect movie
during Terms of
a
Endearment?
decent amount at the end. I cry at the end because like the mom. I cried. It's funny now. Like this is so hack and corny, but like allow me to be a little like I was like when I was a kid and I watched it, I would cry because from the perspective of the kid with his mom dying.
Yeah,
and now
when
I'm
she says
watching
goodbye
it,
to her sons.
right. And now that scene, I was crying from the perspective of her having to say goodbye to her children. It's like very upsetting. It's like, and it's such a great. I'm like, it's just a great movie. It's like the perfect version of that movie. And it's a movie that like, obviously like James L. Brooks was so inspirational probably, and certainly to like Cameron Crowe and like Judd Apatow and like a lot of filmmakers beyond. But nobody's ever done that version of that movie like as well as this. Even James L. Brooks, while I like broadcast news a lot, and like this is still the best version of this. Whatever you would call this, like it's like lifelike melodrama, or what would you even call? I don't even know what the categorization is, but it's just like it is whatever
Yeah,
this is.
I don't
The
know.
best
I
movie.
think it's like I mean, it's like it's a family drama but I think like the tone is also really unique and I think it's because of also his sitcom sensibilities.
Yes,
And I think it definitely balances, the tragedy with the comedy, especially with Shirley's performance. And I don't think anyone else besides him would have achieved this, or like have like produced this final product this way. Cause I think the final product is great.
yeah. It's just so
I
it's
think
like absolute.
it's so tricky because I think now I mean, I don't even know what like the general perception of it is now because I feel like, like the give her the shot scene is like viral and I feel like that I don't know how people view that because I think it obviously makes sense in the context of the film and it works. And I think if you see it out of context, like on TikTok or something, it's like LOL. Um,
Maybe.
and like I don't know, like do people like see this as just kind of like a soapy like woman's film or something, in quotes?
I
It's
mean,
like
maybe. I like with all of these, I'm just like, did anybody even know these movies exist, right? Like, how would you like if you're like a 17-year-old or
yeah, because I think that's how like the kids these days would see it. It's just like, oh, it's just
either
like
on TikTok, like they're not doing this on, while they maybe they should. They're not doing this on the rewatchables, even though they should.
no. Yeah, but it's a really well-made film. It's incredibly moving. And eh, yeah, like the humor, I think really adds another layer to it that does, because I think without the humor, I think that the movie might be a real drag, not just because it's sad, but just like in terms of pacing
Right.
and everything. Yeah, and so I feel like this movie of his entire resume, it really n blends together, like, uh, like, his talents with the sitcom
Yes.
and with, like, dramatic, like, filmmaking
Yeah.
too.
And I mean, like we said, we'll do broadcast news coming up. Great
Mhm.
movie too. And I'll probably just rewatch it again just because I want to. Uh, but like clearly, James L. Brooks, God love him, has never like reached these heights again,
Yeah.
and like certainly like not gonna push all my chips in the table on his new movie, right? That he's got making now. That like will be a return to form. Hopefully, it will be, but I don't know. So clearly was gonna win. I was gonna ask you like. Where are people on the right stuff, or were they even at the time? And did they mention this in Inside Oscar? Because I'm like, it feels like it was like it's not like this had Oscar buzz, but don't you think it like seems like it definitely underperformed in its nominations? And I don't even know what people think of it now, but I was like, I really love that movie. But is it like, did it have like a great? Did
Well,
people
yeah,
really
it
love
was
it?
acclaimed,
Right.
so it was like yeah, well, the issue with I mean, so it missed the directing nomination,
Right.
obviously, but, it also had a large ensemble cast, so it only got in Sam Shepard for Chuck
Yeah.
Yeager, great performance,
So good.
RIP.
Fantastic.
Um, yeah, so, like, it probably could have gone in more dudes like Ed Harris, like Scott Glenn, but, I mean, you could say the same thing about The Big Chill, it's just Glenn Close.
Another good movie.
Yeah, but I do think yeah, I don't think it's, like, talked about now, but I think it is, like, if people watch it now, they'll be like, "This is a badass movie."
It's so good. I remember the two VHSs, Joyce. That was a two VHS
Just
rental.
like Titanic.
Yes. And
Did you
Casino.
watch the series a couple years ago?
I
Like,
did
Nat
actually.
Geo movie
And I had to
Nat
do
Geo
interviews for it. And I enjoed the series, actually. I think I
with
was one of the
PGA,
few
my guy
people.
PGA
Yes. I think I was one of the few people who enjoyed it. It was
or
pretty good. Yeah.
PGA.
It was pretty good.
Yeah, and it got canceled, so
Uh, so for the other
uh,
five for Best Picture, like if we were doing 10, seemingly fairly easy, but what did you? I have Silkwood and Fanny Ann Alexander because
yeah.
those got directing nominations. I have Educating Rita, and then I threw Yentl and Flashdance in at the end.
Um, I I did Yentl too, just because it got 5
Right.
nominations, and then I don't think it would happen because I don't think it was ever really considered for Best Picture, but Return of the Jedi.
So I had that as my alternates. I also had, and then Cross Creek I had.
I don't think I think that was just, like, a lot like, mostly, like, acting, really. It's, like, one of those it's, like, the underdog films that
Yeah.
get, like, acting, but not picture, you know?
So I was trying to, I think you're right. Like, I don't even think now, I mean, Return of the Jedi, I actually think is good. I think people go through waves on that where it was like, this
Yeah.
sucks. It wasn't as good as Empire. And then actually it's good. And then now it's bad. And then now after Rise of Skywalker, maybe it's good again. Before we were destroyed by social media and having brainworms from that and just watching it, I never, in my whole life, I just went through my whole life thinking, man, Return of the Jedi, good movie. Really like the Ewoks, so many good
Don't
scenes.
you miss, like, before the internet when you
Oh my
just, like,
God.
had your own opinions?
Yes, it
And
was so much
then
better.
yeah. But and then it's just, like, you talk about it with your friends and family, and it's fine.
I
And
didn't
then
need to
now, like,
know what
everyone
everybody
is
else
just, like,
thought.
yelling at you, telling you that's wrong, and is
Yeah.
trying to make you conform to their take. I'm like, "We can all like different
It
things."
was so much nicer when we didn't have to care what millions of other people we didn't know thought.
Yeah.
So that was where I was on Return of the Jedi. I was like, man, Return of the Jedi is great. Love a lot of. There's so many great scenes in it too. I don't think it would have gotten in though. I don't know.
No,
Maybe
and I don't think that was ever in the conversation
no. It's
for Best Picture. It was, like, the quote, "serious movies."
right. I mean, this is a tough year though, like we said, because like it's very top heavy, and you could have like another
Yeah.
few, but it's tough to fill out to 10.
Yeah.
Uh, for best director, well, no kidding, James L. Brooks wins. The other nominees were Peter Yates for The Dresser, a surprise. Ingmar Bergman for Fanny and Alexander, Mike Nichols for Silkwood, and then Bruce Beresford for Tender Mercies. So fuck off to Lawrence Kasdan and Philip Kaufman.
Mhm. And also to Babs
Correct.
or Yentl, which obviously didn't have the corresponding
Correct.
Best Picture nomination.
A lot of
So,
snubs there.
yeah. So, I'll read from Inside Oscar
Yes, please.
about this is about, Babs.
Okay.
So, um, like, she didn't get a DGA nomination, so, like, the writing was on the wall. Um, if the Directors Guild made Streisand feel unwelcome, the Academy made her feel like a pariah. Streisand wasn't nominated for anything. Yentl pulled in 5 nominations, Best Picture was not among them. Blah, 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 recap. Okay. And then after the nominations were announced, Johnny Carson quipped, "Now Barbara Streisand really knows the meaning of the big chill."
Ouch.
Columnist Jack Matthews took her omission more seriously. Quote, "Streisand had no choice but to take this personally, since the film itself pulled 5 nominations," he argued. A group calling itself PEP, Principles, Equality, and Professionalism in Film, did take it personally. They announced they'd be picketing on Oscar night. "We are not avid Barbara Streisand fans by any means," Simone Sheffield, one of the demonstrators, told the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner. "But the way the Academy treated her is really the spark that lit the flame. She worked 15 years to make that movie, just like Richard Attenborough worked 20 years on Gandhi. But even though the movie represents a significant accomplishment, the Academy doesn't want to admit that a woman is responsible for it." Yentl's sole acting nominee was Amy Irving, who told Marilyn Beck that she was, quote, "devastated" by what happened to Barbara. But the director called the nominee and instructed, quote, "Go and enjoy yourself. Don't worry about me." So Irving felt free to exclaim, quote, "It was one of the high points of my life." When Beck asked another question about Streisand, Irving reminded the columnist that an Oscar, quote, "would certainly help me more business-wise than it would her."
Wow.
And then there was picketing at the Oscar ceremony.
I gotta
Um,
say, they all the points they make, solid points.
mm. So, posters of Barbara Streisand greeted the Academy's guests as 30 demonstrators waved placards that read, "If Yentl was Ansel, she'd
Mm.
be nominated." And score 1927 to present, Best Director nominations, men 273, women 1. So,
adds a lot of nice context to Babs giving Catherine Bigelow an Oscar.
The time has come.
Definitely was done dirty, I feel like, by the Academy. Though, like, not sure the future movies were good enough. Like Jordan, our pal Jordan just said, Yentl maybe is her best movie. Not sure, like Prince of Tides.
Okay, so I don't know if I'm conflating this with another movie. I can't remember if I saw Yentl in school or not.
I definitely did not. I don't think,
I don't
but it's
know.
possible, I guess.
But I don't, I mean, would you have nominated her for director?
So probably not in this group. I don't know. I mean, like, not gonna sit here and pretend I like really care about the dresser. No disrespect to this movie. So like, you could have punted him out. Bruce Beresford, hilariously here. Tender Mercy is pretty good though. I mean, you could have put her in. I don't know. I just think that I would have made a bigger case for Philip Kaufman or Lawrence Kasdan, and I think both those
Yeah.
movies are better than Yentl. So she'd
Yeah.
be third on my list of aggrieved snubs.
Yeah, I think it's like tricky because I don't think I would have nominated her either, and I probably wouldn't nominate the film either in A Field of Five,
Right.
you know?
So
So,
tough.
but it doesn't mean that like,
They're wrong.
yeah, it's like I don't think like just because you're a woman and you directed a movie, you should get nominated, you
Sure.
know, like just because you're a
Right.
woman.
Right.
Um, and it's yeah, I do think there's like other factors involved with her and like her snub and how people feel about her and view her, you know? So I think that's kind of part of it too. And um, but you know, like they like clearly didn't love the movie that much. Like it also missed Best Picture, you know. I think I've been worse if like it got into Best Picture and she missed, right?
Definitely. I mean, it just ends up being like it just feels her and Bradley Cooper feel very aligned, I think.
Yeah, it's like it's a very similar vibe.
Not like obviously the sexism part of it accepted, because certainly Barbara Streisand had to face much more of that
Yeah.
than Bradley Cooper would. But
And Bradley doesn't have to deal with, you know, it's like, oh, they didn't nominate him because like he's a woman, you know. It's like
right.
he's a dude.
So
So his is the snub is just like a snub, right? There's no your gender's not involved with
it
it.
just feels like when you try so hard and you're also an actor, there's just like an immediate distrust of this person for whatever reason. Certainly in the public eye. We don't like trying, Joyce. People don't like people seeing trying.
Yeah, it's like it's such again, it's such a fine line of like of showing how much you want it and like which is fitting for this year also with like Shirley because like she let everyone know she wanted it, you
She did.
know. But I think she handles like I think it's also her personality, like she handled it differently. There was more humor and like self-deprecation than there is with, you know,
Right.
Babs
Right.
and Bradley,
Yes.
right? You know, like obviously they've embraced other actors turned directors too. Um
But a lot of the ones they've embraced are more cool. Like I'm thinking like
Like
Mel
Robert
Gibson,
Redford with like yeah,
Robert
like
Redford, Kevin
Kevin,
Costner,
Nell.
Clint Eastwood are
Yeah,
all of a type. They're much more cool, right? And like
yeah,
fuck off kind of. And
yeah.
Bradley is like love me. That's the difference. You know what I mean? Like
They're too earnest. Again, they're like Babs too. I think like they're so passionate
right.
about what they do and what they
Even
love.
even Ben Affleck was like fuck
Mhm.
off basically. And obviously he didn't win director, but just winning Argo for best picture. Like it's like the different vibes. Bradley's definitely like I love please love me.
Yeah. Um, so I mean, you know, like with Maestro, at least like he got actor and
Right.
best picture, you know. I mean, I guess like Yentl would have gone in a field of 10
I think Yenta would have gotten
and
in and
she
Maestro
would
would
have
have
gotten
not.
the producer nomination,
Yes.
but you
And
know,
Maestro would have not gotten in a field of five.
absolutely not. No.
So we know that. Anybody else you got on to mention for director before we go to actor?
Mike Nichols for Silkwood.
Sure.
Um, Surprised you haven't already said Marty for King of Comedy, which would never happen.
I
But
have him listed, and Brian De Palma for Scarface. Clearly would never happen.
I also have a Fosse for Star 80.
Sure. Sure. Best actor winner is Robert Duvall for Tender Mercies.
Another lock.
And then four British guys.
Yeah.
Michael Caine. I'm Michael Caine for Educating Rita. Tom Conti for Reuben, Tom Courtney for The Dresser, and Albert Finney for The Dresser. Joyce, is this the first time in history that there are two actor and two actress nominees from the same movie in lead categories? Do you
The
know
the
this off the top of
double
your
the
head?
double noms?
Yeah, because it seems so rare, and we have it
It's
twice.
very rare. Well, it's the rarest in Best Actress because there's only been 5 instances of that
Okay.
in Best Actress is All About Eve, Suddenly Last Summer, The Turning Point, Terms, and Thelma and Louise. Um, and there are more in actor. So the following year, next year, 1984, for real, the film year 1984 will have Amadeus, so we'll have that again.
Yes. And
And that was the last time. Amadeus was the last instance in uh actor. And obviously it's more common in supporting. So
right.
supporting actress is the most common. So most
Sure.
recently we had our girl JLC
Yes.
and Stephanie Shu. Before that was The Favorite. And then we had a long drought in supporting actor for 26 years before Three Billboards. And then we've like basically had one every year since except for one. So it's been that and then Irishman, Judas, Power of the Dog, and Banshees, and then
Right.
none last year. Um, but yeah, this year we have a lot of double ups because we also have the double noms in supporting actor for
Mhm.
terms,
Yeah.
you know. So, but uh the I don't there's no other overlap between actor and actress with double noms, I don't think, because All About Eve is 50.
Kind of crazy, right?
It's just it's like a different time. I was like wondering about this too, um, since I knew we were like gonna talk about this, but it's just kind of wild like how that the strategy just passively changed. It was like we can't campaign two leads of the same gender because now, I mean, we'll get the best actress, but now, Deborah Winger, they would definitely campaign in supporting,
It would have
and then
been
now for the dresser, they would definitely put Tom Courtney in supporting.
right. But it would have been one of the biggest frauds of all time.
Yeah,
Certainly for
like
Deborah
total
Winger.
fraud.
It would
I
be
mean, I don't
complete
care.
fraud.
Do whatever you want, but it will
Right.
be fraud.
Now
Everyone
it's
will be talking about how it's
well
fraud.
because we know now that we figured out a way to game the system. Like
Right. And I'm just like I was like trying to figure out like when that started because I don't think you notice it until things don't happen again, you know?
so like obviously you mentioned Thelma and Louise the last time two actresses. I mean the first time it can't be this. I mean I'm sure there's other examples, but the one I keep going is Carol was like such an obvious one where it was like they're both leads and they frauded Rooney Mara in supporting.
Yeah, but I feel like that it was it that was this epidemic happened before, you
You
know?
think it
Like
did? I
these
mean let
there
me
it's
look.
just a lot of recent examples, even though that was 9 years ago, but
I'm gonna look here. I'm looking at best supporting actress, so we'll go to like let me look for these years. Let's see.
um I mean, it doesn't even have to be like double nominees and supporting. It's
No,
just
I'm
like
just
they
looking for single like any
yeah,
nominees.
single
Like
nominees.
I mean, like
Uh,
in the '90s, it was pretty balanced. I feel like none of these seem like leads.
I just it's just funny, like just how it just kind of stopped because it was pretty common throughout the 20th century, not in Best Actress, because obviously, there are fewer films too with just one lead actress, let
Mhm.
alone two. Um, but I
Yeah, it's
it's
weird.
so rare now that we never even like
It wouldn't even.
consider it really.
It wouldn't even be possible now. I don't think it would be like something went wrong if this happened.
It's like we know they're gonna it's like if we hear about a movie and we like see the log line about some or if there's just like screening tea, like everyone knows that if it's like two leads of the same gender, they're gonna fraud someone in supporting.
So
It's like
like a
we
good
expect it now.
like an example for this year would be probably challengers will have this right debate because you have Josh O'Connor and Mike Feist. I would say both could be leads, both could be supporting, or they'll fraud one in supporting and run one in lead to make the other one have a better
It's
chance
it's
at the
like The
supporting.
Favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I will give a shout out to Ford versus Ferrari because they
mm,
did run both Christian Bale and Matt Damon in lead.
good for them.
Yeah.
So Robert Duvall wins, gets the Oscar from Dolly Parton and Sylvester Stallone. Very charming. Dolly is thrilled.
She's thrilled. And everyone knew he was winning. And there is a quote in Inside Oscar from Michael Caine. He was like, when I saw Dolly Parton come out, I was like, oh, of course, it's like country music. But he knew before that because he said he decided to come even though he knew he wasn't winning because he lives here and he wants to support the Oscars.
Fun.
Yeah.
Somehow Robert Duvall's first Oscar and only Oscar.
Yeah, and so the thing is like I'm happy he's an Oscar winner, and I think this is a good performance for him to win for, but it's not like a legendary iconic performance that people really know, like the Gen Pop really
I
knows.
think if you ask somebody who didn't know anything, so like me,
they will assume that he's an Oscar winner, but if you ask for what, they won't be able to.
Godfather, right? They'd probably say Godfather
Yeah,
or
yeah.
like Great Santini, maybe, if you know that one, right? I mean, like, it just feels like you would not be referencing Tender Mercies.
Yeah.
And
Or The
it feels
Judge.
like, it honestly feels so much like it's the same kind of part too, like Jeff Bridges, right? For Crazy.
Well, Crazy Heart is like aping Tender
Yes. And it's
Mercies.
like the win is aping, like, because I think if you ask somebody what did Jeff Bridges win his Oscar for,
Tender
they would be
Mercies.
like, whatever, right? Yeah.
Also, everyone in this category is basically an alcoholic or they're
Yes.
drinking. They drink.
Yes.
Yeah. This category is also kind of no shade to any of these men, but just kind of boring.
Pretty stiff.
It's
I
like
wrote
I
down,
feel like they're all very competent performances, but I don't feel like any of them truly sing, that
yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, so and so was robbed.
So I wrote down other guys. I wrote down not one of these would ever happen, but these are the other ones I wrote down just for my own shits and giggles. Robert De Niro, obviously, for King of Comedy. I think it's one of his great performances. Al Pacino for Scarface, truly an iconic, out of his mind performance. Eric Roberts for Star 80. Tom Cruise for Risky Business. Mandy Patinkin for Yentl, and Eddie Murphy for Trading Places.
I obviously have Keaton for Mr. Mom.
Sure.
I also have Nick Nolte for Under Fire.
Okay. Great. Your favorite movie, Under Fire?
My favorite movie I've only seen once, like 30 years ago.
Let's go to Best Actress because it's definitely like the most fun and intriguing one of this whole thing. Shirley MacLaine wins, Joyce, for Terms of Endearment.
Iconic speech.
I deserve this. Thank you, basically. It's her speech. The other nominees are Jane Alexander for Testament.
The TV
Meryl
movie.
Streep for Silkwood. Julie Walters for Educating Rita. And Deborah Winger also for Terms of Endearment.
Mm-hmm.
So Deborah and Shirley MacLaine, legendary, not fun, not fans.
I can read from Inside Oscar.
Great. I have a People Magazine story we could read from as well.
I mean, if you're watching this, you probably know about Deborah's reputation.
Yes.
Throughout her career. I don't think we really talked about it like with Officer and Gentleman.
We were waiting for this, I think. So
yeah.
We can do it now.
But there were quote difficulties on that set too.
Yes, she and Richard Gere did not get along.
Yeah. So basically the genesis of Terms is Jennifer Jones. She got the rights to it and she was trying to find, director for it. So she took it to Jim Brooks, good old Jim.
Love him.
And he loved it and he convinced her, he didn't want her to star in it, so he convinced her to sell the rights to Paramount. And so then he starts searching for his new leads. So Anne Bancroft and Louise Fletcher were very interested. And he ended up obviously casting Shirley for Aurora. And Sissy Spacek was originally supposed to play Emma. But then they obviously went to Deborah Winger. So then, quote from Deborah Winger, "For 3 months, I walked around with pregnancy pads," said Winger, describing her preparation for the role. "Every 2 weeks, I added weights. I slept with the pads. My back was killing me. I never gave in." Winger's demand for realism seemed a little bit much to her co-star. Quote, "Deborah insisted that I and her parents call her by her character's name," Emma recalled MacLaine. "I understood the torture she was going through, but I just don't work that way." MacLane's methods were equally unorthodox, though. She communicated with the dead. Quote, "My real role model was Martha Mitchell," the actress told reporters. "She was in my mind all the time. I always felt like she was hovering while I was working."
So a lot of great stuff about this. This is from People Magazine, February 1984. So just before the Oscars. The picture of them on the cover, and the headline is "On Good Terms" in italics. Deborah
Great
Winger,
headline.
Deborah Winger and Shirley MacLaine talk about mothers and daughters and their own feisty face-off as stars of the Oscar-bound movie. And then I'll just read the lead, and then I got a couple other things I flagged because this is so good. From the outset, there was not exactly a family resemblance. In fact, when the issue of offspring first arose, the mother hadn't even heard of her daughter, Deborah Winger. I didn't know the name, said Shirley MacLaine. I didn't know who she was. I don't know her, Deborah
I
Winger.
don't know. Mariah
She
stole it
fucking
from Shirley.
Mariah'd her decades before Mariah. Anyway, I don't know who she was. Frequently out of the country. MacLaine had missed An Officer and a Gentleman and Urban Cowboy. Officer and a Gentleman, literally one of the biggest movies of the year it was released. Somehow missed it. Didn't see a poster. Had no fucking idea. But
You know
okay.
what? She didn't vote for it the year before, so.
And with 21 years and few mutual friends between them, MacLaine 49 and Winger 28 didn't spin in the same social orbit either. So at the first meeting between parent and child, quote, "We were all nervous," recalls director James L. Brooks. According to MacLaine, the intro was a comic clash of styles. To see how my character would feel, I was wearing all my leftover movie star fur coat, she recalls. Into Brooks's Manhattan apartment, she traipsed. There was Deborah, dressed in combat boots and a miniskirt, says Shirley. I thought, oh my goodness. And then later, let's see, hang on. Blah, blah, blah. Brooks saw accountability, blah, blah, blah. When Brooks got caught in the crossfire, diplomacy was the domain of Nicholson, a pal of Winger and the best friend of Shirley's brother, Warren Beatty. He was the glue of the production, says Winger. Nicholson observes, if things become nutsy, you almost hate to say it, but it is a barometer of the vitality of the production. No one can get a fix on their relationship, not even the participants, says Brooks. For the co-stars, both the affection and antagonism was relative. It was all in line with the work, insists MacLaine. And Winger on this issue at least agrees. The proof is that I think the mother and the daughter look like they love each other, and that is the one thing you can't really act. Uh,
I mean,
Pretty
it's all
fantastic.
about the realism. So.
So, and you mentioned the Reputation. There was because this was an anniversary of this Oscars, Joyce, this
Mhm.
year.
Yes.
40th anniversary. So Vanity Fair did a nice piece Joe Reed wrote and talked about Deborah Winger's reputation, which you mentioned. I'll just read this little chunk here. Quite a reputation with friction with coworkers before, during, and after production. She famously sparred with Richard Gere on the set of An Officer and a Gentleman. Years later, she quit the lead role in Penny Marshall's A League of Their Own when Madonna was cast in a supporting role. In that same interview, in which she acknowledged, this is earlier in the time, she did a few years later. In that same interview, in which she acknowledged that she and MacLaine had fought, she buried the film she was promoting, Legal Eagles, and its director, Ivan Reitman, saying the film had been edited with a chainsaw. In MacLaine's autobiography, she had a story this. Winger yelling at her, "Get over here," to hit her mark. Per MacLaine, "I heard you," I said. "I know marks when I see them." "Good," Winger said. "How's this for a mark?" She turned around, walked away from me, lifted her skirt slightly, looked over her shoulder, bent over, and farted in my face.
Queen.
It's like fucking not a single goddamn note. The most perfect stuff. This is just incredible.
When are they? Why wasn't this feud season 2?
This would be such a great feud. I
Why
think
did they do Capote versus the Swans?
I have
No one
no
asked for
idea.
that.
And in her speech, which is just a wonderful Oscar speech, I'm going to read.
It's one of the best speeches. I watched that speech a lot just because no notes. It's perfect from beginning to end. The clip at the beginning about the length of the ceremony, and
She says,
she shouts everyone out and saying, the turbulent brilliance of Deborah
"It's
Winger.
so good. It's so good. I'm going to cry because this show has been as long as my career. I have wondered for 26 years what this would feel like. Thank you for terminating the suspense." And then she thanks everybody, like you said, and the wonderful turbulence of Deborah Winger. She inhabited the character so thoroughly that I thought for 4 months I had two daughters. But in the end, let me just say one thing. Films in life are like clay waiting for us to mold it. And when you trust your own insides and that becomes achievement, it's kind of a principle that seems to me is that work with everyone. God bless that principle. God bless that potential that we all have for making anything possible if we think we deserve it. I deserve this. Thank you.
You have to hold it up.
So good.
I deserve it. Walk away. Yeah,
Uh,
she again, like we said, she made it known that she wanted this.
so
And
definitely
it's
a presage to Jamie Lee and like
and
Melissa
like Kate
Leo
Winslet.
and Kate Winslet. But I would say
So
the best performance of all these I wanted Oscar wins.
yeah. Um, so in here, inside Oscar, blah, blah, blah. So like after the film came out, everyone was like Oscar nominations for everyone, basically. Um, so So Winger confessed the Oscar prediction quotes makes me very nervous. I don't like to think about it. But MacLaine had no trouble telling Algene Harmitz she'd, quote, like to win the Oscar, and if I did win, I would think I deserved it. So this was her campaign, and again, like I think it worked for her because I think she has like a sense of humor about it, and it doesn't feel desperate and sweaty, right? It's like they want to know that you want it, but not too much, right? It's like it's all performative.
And it helps that her brothers weren't Beatty and that everybody likes her and
Yeah,
like
and it's also she's never won before,
right.
so this is her fifth nomination. She probably should have won for The Apartment. I also think even if she had won for The Apartment, she would still win for
So
this.
I was wondering that. I definitely think she should have won The Apartment. Not that I'm like a big. I love The Apartment. It's absolutely one of my favorite movies, and certainly like a great like Billy Wilder. Certainly like the proto James Brooks, right? Like kind of thing. So it's fun that she won an Oscar here for Terms of Endearment. But I mean, I think Deborah Winger in this movie is like one of the best performances ever. It's just a shame they couldn't tie. Basically, that was my thinking. I was like, they're so good. But really, like, I feel like Deborah Winger should have won an Oscar in this era when she was like great, even if she's very difficult. And I just don't think
So,
after this she really had a shot.
well, it's funny because it's like uh Shirley was not nominated after this, and Deborah was for Shadowlands.
The thing I was thinking was, and we
Yeah.
could talk about this when we get to broadcast news, is that Deborah Winger was going to be in broadcast news in the Holly Hunter part and got pregnant and had to drop out, I believe. And so then Holly Hunter took it and was nominated, didn't win, and then later won for the piano. If Deborah Winger is nominated in 1987 or 88, right, whatever Oscars that is, for broadcast news, would she have won then Oscar then?
I don't know. And then like Shadowlands was also the same year as the piano.
So like Cher wins for Moonstruck. Great performance, right? Like people love Cher. Other nominees that year are Glenn Close for Fatal Attraction, Holly Hunter, Sally Kirkland, and Meryl Streep somehow again. So like I don't know. I don't
But
know if she would have
also
beat
like
Cher.
if they did the frauding back in this era, like Deborah would have been in supporting, so would she have won supporting and Terms would have won 3 acting
I
Oscars?
think yes. Well, I think we'll get to Linda Hunt winning for Year of Living Dangerously. Can't imagine that has aged very well. I watched some clips of it the other
It
day.
has not aged very well, but the performance is still great. But I think Deborah would have won had they frauded her in supporting.
Absolutely, without a doubt. The fact is, I think Nicholson is great in terms of endearment, but like him winning to me is almost like comical because I don't think he's like fantastic in the movie. So it just shows me that they love the movie. I mean, they love Jack too, obviously, but like he didn't have to win for Terms of Endearment, which we'll get to here in a minute, I guess. But yeah, I think she would have won if she was frauded for sure. Would Shirley have been frauded in supporting? Would that have made more
No, that
sense?
she would have never been supported. Like Aurora is the lead of or like if you're gonna pick one, she's like 1A
Right.
and Deborah is 1B. And I think you can even tell in the script, like I think James um creates a fuller character with Aurora. Not that Emma is not a complete character, but I think Emma really soars because of Deborah's performance.
And I think ultimately that's probably why Shirley won over her, certainly. And I think if she was frauded, though, she would have won, Deborah.
I think like Shirley um like she's such a force in the film and she gets to do a lot. Like it's just very rangy performance.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I feel like a lot of people, especially if you're not like really familiar with the film or like the context of um Shirley's career or like the year, you might think this was just like a career win, and I think it can double as a career win for sure. But I think this is one of those career wins where it's actually worthy, and I think she would have won anyway, like I said, even if she had already won for The Apartment. So she would have 2 Oscars.
Yeah, I think it is. It ends up being a career win because it's her only win. It's kind of like
Yeah.
Robert Duvall a little, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
and
like,
she was waiting 26 years as her fifth
right.
nomination. Yeah.
But she wasn't very old. I mean, she's only like
She
49.
was she was 49. She was weeks away from her 50th birthday, which is funny because we didn't have a Best Actress winner who won in her 50s for decades until Julianne Moore.
Yeah. Anybody else? Who'd you write? I mean, like, I wrote down Barbara for Yentl.
I had Mariel Hemingway for Star 80.
Sure.
Bonnie Bedelia for Heart Like a Wheel, a Globe nominee. She was kind of like one of the critical underdogs too. Like she and Jane Alexander were the two like underdogs, and Jane got in for Testament, the TV movie turned film, post-nuclear war. Um, and then do you think, I don't think she would have won, but do you think Meryl would have won for Silkwood had she not won for Sophie's Choice?
No way. No way.
I don't think like that's beating
No.
Shirley.
Terms of Endearment is like the movie. They loved it.
And I think it's also a better performance than Meryl's in Silkwood,
Yeah.
but I think I like Meryl's Silkwood performance more than her Sophie's performance.
Yeah, we weren't the biggest Sophie's Choice, folks.
I just like Meryl when she's more like natural.
Yeah.
So,
I also wrote down Rebecca De Mornay for Risky Business.
of course you did.
Great movie. Supporting actor, we mentioned Jack wins for Terms of Endearment. They really loved seeing Jack win. The crowd went nuts. Jack with his sunglasses, just looking great, resplendent. The other nominees were Charles Durning for To Be or Not to Be, John Lithgow for Terms of Endearment, Sam Shepard for The Right Stuff, and Rip Torn for Cross Creek.
Sam, not there.
No.
We didn't mention how for director, Jim and Peter Yates were the only ones there.
It's pretty funny. That's how you know the fix is in, or whatever. You knew it was going to be Terms of Endearment. Like,
Well, this is also the era when people just didn't go to the Oscars. It's not like
guess.
now when everyone
Yeah.
goes. So
Jack is great in Terms of Endearment. I'm not going to like knock this performance, and I think he should have won here over everybody else. So I guess it doesn't matter. It just, to me, it's like, I don't know. It's not like, I wouldn't put, would you put it like Reds? I think he's better in Reds, which we talked about already. But like, it's like he's better in that than this. But I'm glad he won another Oscar here. Why not?
I think, hold on, I think it's like obviously they like terms more than Reds. But I think it's just like I think they like seeing Jack in this mode. I think
Yeah,
that's
I think they love like Jack, like no, doesn't give a fuck Jack, kind of
it's
like.
fun. And okay, so the character was created just for the film because he wasn't in the book. So Brooks was looking for help when it came time to cast the character he invented for the film. McLean's lecherous, pot-bellied, middle-aged neighbor who becomes her lover. Quote, "You needed a male star," Brooks said, "but you couldn't get a male star to do it because the part was short and because the actor had to give up his vanity." Burt Reynolds was all too happy to play the part, insisting, quote, "It's the role I'm looking for. Walking around holding your stomach in at 47 is hard work." But a prior commitment kept him away. So the role was played by Jack Nicholson, also 47, who said, quote, "I'm in my 40s, and if I'm going to continue to grow as a person and an artist, I can't keep playing 35-year-old ideas of romance."
I love, he just looks so relaxed watching.
Yeah, I think like this is like, we love like fun Jack.
Love
And
fun
not
Jack.
like, not necessarily Eugene O'Neill Jack.
No, and he's so good in this. He is very good in this. I'm not disappointed he won for this. It just is. Do you understand? Like, I feel like it's funny that he won a second Oscar for this movie in this role. Like, it's not an undeniable performance, I guess.
Well, it's also his second Oscar, so it's
Right.
like, who cares? Like,
And it's supporting. Who gives a fuck,
he already
right?
has, and he's gonna win a third one.
Right.
And it's also cool that every time he wins an Oscar, his lead actress wins an
Yeah.
Oscar too. So
For other people I wrote down here,
it's just like everyone in The Right Stuff and
multiple from The Right Stuff
Big
and The
Chill.
Big Chill. Then so it was like this. Like if it was the Emmys, it would be All Right Stuff and Big Chill. I also wrote down Stephen Bauer for Scarface, who I think got a Globe nomination that year. Kurt Russell for Silkwood and Jerry Lewis for King of Comedy.
Yeah, I have them too. Do I have anyone else? I know I just have like all Denholm Elliott for Trading Places.
Fantastic. Fantastic pull. Love it.
I also have Gene Hackman for Under Fire.
Your favorite. The supporting actress Linda Hunt wins, as we mentioned. She played Billy Kwan, a Chinese Australian photographer in The Year of Living Dangerously, which is a Peter Weir movie starring Mel Gibson and Sigourney Weaver. The other nominees were Cher and Silkwood, who I have to say, Joyce, looked pretty mad at Val Kilmer when they cut to her doing the announcements. They're together as dates, I assume.
Hmm.
She did not look pleased. Glenn Close for The Big Chill, Amy Irving for Yentl, and Alfre Woodard for Cross Creek. So Linda Hunt wins, and everyone is thrilled.
This is a very well-liked performance, and you can tell when they're reading the nominees. She got the loudest applause.
She had the last applause when she wins. Everyone is very happy that she won. It felt like it's a gimmick performance that like people really liked.
Yeah, and I think it's also one of the gimmick performances that actually works. It's not gimmicky in a bad way because I think her performance is so great.
It's funny. I was watching clips of it because I haven't seen this movie in 100 years, but I was like, I gotta watch this again. And I gotta say, she totally sells it. I don't know.
She's
She
great. Yeah.
should not be playing the part, obviously. And I'm sure nowadays people would have a lot of problematic. It's very problematic and blah blah blah. But I'm like, you know what? She's doing a good job. So I'm like, that's
Yeah,
a pleasure.
I mean, things were a lot less PC back then.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone now would cancel
I,
it,
I
call it
guess
problematic. It's like
funny thing
how could
about
she have
it,
won?
the funny thing about it is like I've seen people like be like compare it to like Mickey Rooney, right? Or like, because it's like super offensive, but I'm like, it's not
It's not. It's really not offensive.
it's offensive and it exists, but it's
It's
actually
offensive.
not
Yeah, like if you
offensive.
read like on paper, it looks offensive, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's
Yeah.
very offensive on
Yeah.
paper, but in real life, when you're watching it, it's actually not offensive. I understand that if your mileage may vary on that, but I was like, I actually don't think it's like an offensive portrayal, but it's just I guess the idea that she shouldn't even be doing it in the
Yeah,
first place.
it's a whole casting. It's stunt casting basically.
Yes.
So
Um,
like that, like now we will understand it to be problematic. Back then, they did not bat an eye.
and
You
it's
know,
not like it's like now it would be like Robert Downey Jr. making fun of it in Tropic Thunder.
yes, and um, it yeah, I think it's like it's treated respectfully. Like they're not mocking it or
Yeah.
anything. There's nothing disparaging about what they're doing. It's just they just felt that this was the best way to go about casting this role, and she was the best person to play it, and she honestly did do a really good job. Like
Very
it's a
strange.
great performance.
No, it
I
is.
like you just have to watch it, I
It
feel like.
is. And it's like, so that's why I'm like, oh, like obviously now it wouldn't exist. So I don't know who would win here, but maybe maybe the role would still win because it is like kind of like the role itself, I think is
Yeah.
good. So probably if you had cast the accurate or proper person in that role, maybe it still would have won. I think. I don't know who else of this lineup. I'm like, I don't know who else would have actually won.
I'm guessing Glenn, like if Linda weren't here.
Right.
I feel like Glenn was probably runner up in a lot of her nominations.
Pretty funny.
She was the
Uh,
only Big Chill representative, like we said. So you could have gotten like Mary Kay Place here too. But yeah, I don't and like we said, like if Deborah were here, she probably would have won.
I think
So
yes. Even in the face of a strong Linda Hunt performance, I think Deborah would have
yeah.
won.
So this was like they were talking about in Inside Oscar how this was like the quote like unpredictable category of the year, but like not really because Linda was winning critics awards
Yeah.
too. But I think like maybe from like the general public perspective, it might seem to be between like Cher, or like and Glenn or something, but um I like Linda's performance was just really beloved, and I think she does do a really good job with creating a three-dimensional character. Like it's
Yeah. It's
yeah.
it's strange to say, but yes. Other people I wrote down Joanna Pacula for Gorky Park,
Yes.
Tess Harper for Tender Mercies, maybe
Hmm.
a coattail.
Yeah.
Jamie Lee Curtis, who I mentioned earlier for Trading
BAFTA
Places.
winner,
Yeah,
Jamie Lee Curtis.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's all I got.
I also have Diana Scarwood for Silkwood.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Um, and then a lot of Roxana Zal stands for Testament. I've
Hmm,
seen her name bandied about
nice.
as like robbed.
Wow. Justice.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
screen
don't care either way, but
no
I've seen it.
screenplays we could do quickly. Tender Mercies wins for Horton Foote, who drops one of my favorite, our favorite line, Joyce, in his speech. He says, Thank you, Robert Duvall, the heart and soul of the film.
They're pals. Wrote it for him.
He did. The other nominees there were Big Chill, Fanny Alexander, Silkwood, and War Games.
They could have added quite a few more here, but like they had no chance. Like King of Comedy,
King of Comedy, sure. Trading Places.
Risky Business, Under Fire.
Your favorite movie, Under Fire.
But like I think a lot of people wish Fanny Alexander won. We haven't really talked about that, but that won 4 Oscars.
Mm-hmm. Foreign
So
language film.
it's the most awarded non-English film in Oscar history, and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Parasite have since tied that, obviously.
Art direction, costume design, and cinematography.
Mm-hmm.
And then adapted screenplay, Terms of Endearment wins. James L. Brooks, 3 Oscars.
Yeah.
The other nominees were Betrayal, The Dresser, Educating Rita, and Reuben.
Betrayal is like LOL here. I'm like, you should have nominated The Right Stuff.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think the response to Right Stuff was very muted, I would say.
It's not muted. Like it got 8 nominations. Like a lot of it below the line made Best Picture, but I feel like it might be seen as like not writerly
or directorly.
Like Betrayal is, Harold Pinter play.
Yeah.
There's a lot of plays in here.
Scarface would be good for this. Never happening. I don't know. Music categories we love. Original score goes to Bill Conti, Joyce. Somehow his first Oscar.
For The Right Stuff.
Yes.
We have great scores.
Legendary composer Bill Conti. The other composers here nominated John Williams for Jedi, Michael Gore for Terms of Endearment, which I really love, Jerry Goldsmith, Under Fire, your fave, and Cross Creek for Leonard Rosenman. No relation, Joyce.
Well, I mean, it's a different name too.
Yeah.
So, and then they had their other score category.
Original. So I was trying to figure this out. What does this actually mean? Because this is
it's like fake.
This is real world word jumble bullshit. Best original song, score, or adaptation score.
Yeah, just words. Just words.
What does it actually mean?
I think it's like when it's like blended with like a song,
Okay.
Yeah.
So the winner is Yentl. Michel Legrand.
Wins. Yeah.
And Alan and Marilyn Bergman, classic musicians here.
Mm-hmm.
Michel Legrand, great. Back in the populace this past year for May, December, right? Like just a lot of people paying attention to his scores. And then the Sting 2 for Lalo Schifrin and Trading Places for Elmer Bernstein. Fantastic nomination and score. Elmer Bernstein, absolute GOAT. These comedy scores in the 80s that he did were just unparalleled.
Yeah. I mean, not a bad win by Yentl. I don't
know
that. So
the only win for Yentl. And then original song, another great win, I think. What a Feeling from Flashdance.
R.I.P. Irene Cara, who was like 23.
Pretty crazy seeing her win an Oscar up there. It's really wonderful.
She died really young too. She was only 63. So.
The other nominees were Maniac from Flashdance, another absolute all-time classic song. Over You from Tender Mercies. Papa, Can You Hear Me from Yentl. And The Way He Makes Me Feel, also from Yentl. Great stuff.
Yentl also has like Barbie vibes. It's like they're inflated by these like
5 nominations with 3 music nominations.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else I wrote down about the show. This one I wrote down for sound effects editing, Kevin Bacon and Daryl Hannah, the stars of Footloose and Splash, 2 movies we'll be talking about, I guess, next week.
Oh, yes. I wrote down Keaton presenting with Christy Brinkley.
Fantastic. Keaton looks absolutely out of his mind.
Great. They were presenting Best Sound, and then he opens with, "This award is for Best Facelift."
So unhinged.
They also, okay, so this other thing they kept doing during their show was just like pointing out people in the audience. And it's like, stand up and let everyone.
Ginger Rogers, stand up, take a bow.
Clap for you. And then they did, because it's 1984, the year of the ceremony, and the Oscars, the Olympics were coming up in Los Angeles. And then they made the wife of the IOC president stand up.
it just blows my mind how long it is. In the New York Times review that we were reading before at the top of this, we're trying not to be as long as the Oscars, but I'll just go back and read it. The first award won by Jack Nicholson, Best Supporting Actor, wasn't announced until more than a half hour had passed. It began to appear as if the awards themselves were something of a vulgar embarrassment.
Yeah, and they were like 3 hours deep before they got into like the major awards. So
Admirable gestures were made to honor some of the industry's more illustrious veterans. Producer-director Hal Roach received the Lifetime Achievement Award for a career that began in 1914 and went on to produce comedians like Laurel and Hardy and films like Topper. Frank Capra, the director, was brought on to present the award for Best Picture, an honor that turned painfully awkward when technical snafus eliminated recorded portions of the sound. The award for editing was given to The Right Stuff, was coupled with a salute to the late William Hornbeck, and accompanied by a clip, significantly the evening's longest, from the classic Western chain. I have to say, the Frank Capra giving Best Picture, it was full fucking my I See Oppenheimer vibes, just totally unmoored from
but
reality.
but like 9 times longer than
It
Al.
was,
It was so long. He had this whole spiel and
I,
everyone's just like, "Just say terms.
I
Just say."
kept, I literally, I just kept hitting arrow forward on the YouTube. I was like, this is so, God love you, Frank Capra, one of the great directors. Could not stand you watching this shit. I'm sorry,
I
RIP,
mean,
you know.
he brought it to so the whole show was 3 hours and 45 minutes, which is just unhinged. And like even after that, like terms wins, and you think like Johnny Scud's gonna come out and say good night, goodbye. No, they do a tribute to Ethel Merman.
Truly, why? In a long tribute. Oh my
And like
God.
like people come out to sing and dance. It's like get Liza and Sammy Davis out here again.
It is a crazy Oscars because like I'm like I wrote down all the famous people who are like obviously long dead, most of these
Mhm.
people.
But
And it's just like
icons.
icon. Shirley Temple, Cary Grant, Gene Kelly, Sammy Davis, Frank Sinatra, Ginger Rogers, Rock Hudson, and Frank Capra, all the same Oscars in the
Yes.
80s. Like, oh my God. And again, like who would that even be now? We
And
don't
that's
even
what I
have,
was thinking. I was like, if they were ever gonna do this now, like who would they trot out?
no one goes away. We've talked about this so much, but no one disappears. Like Cary Grant at that point showing up, it was like, wow, Cary Grant, that's cool. But like, who would that be now? It's like everybody's still around.
People, yeah, people are either working so you still see them, or they're just like online somehow. Like people are even if they're not even if you don't like see like paparazzi shots of them, I feel like people are discussed in some way. It's like, oh, I hope like some like so and so makes another movie or something. It's like they're always like somehow in the consciousness, and like some people are also on social media. We've talked about this.
Cary Grant was 79. He died a few years later at 82. Here are actors now, based on a quick Google search, so you know it's right, who are 79. Michael Douglas, still fucking generating
Franklin,
headlines.
Franklin,
Franklin, literally now. Tom Selleck, still saw a bunch of
Blue
headlines
Bloods,
about Blue
R.I.P.
Bloods. Yes. Gary Busey, also still generating headlines. Sam Elliott was a recent Oscar nominee. Danny Trejo, never not around. Danny DeVito, 79. It's like these people
It's
do
just at the
not
Oscars.
disappear. Literally, don't. Nobody goes
It's
away.
Always Sunny is still on the air.
Nobody goes away. There's no way. None of this kind of. I guess that's like. I guess I would say like you can never have these moments again. Not because the people aren't famous or there's not like Michael Douglas. I do think is like a beloved actor. What he's not as famous as Cary Grant, whatever. But he's like a legitimate like beloved actor, or at least was. But like he's literally on Franklin right now. There's an Apple TV Plus show that you could watch him
And he's
on.
on Instagram. Like his team is posting frequently.
It's like you can never have this experience of being like, wow, I can't believe they found this person for the Oscars again because they're never not found. They're
And
always
the thing is,
around.
it's like I guess it would have applied more to Kirk Douglas.
Yes.
But like he was still making appearances too at the Oscars. I mean, remember his
Yes.
presentation to Melissa Leo?
Mm-hmm.
Like, um, yeah, but he was also still around, and I feel like the impact would be greater if we didn't have the internet.
Another
And
just basically the takeaway from this whole the whole series here in our lives is what if the internet didn't exist?
yeah, let's go back to pre-internet days. And then
You
like,
could,
you don't like bring out these people. You wait a little bit longer to bring out these people,
I
so
keep going
it
back to this, but outside of Gene Hackman, literally, who would be an actor who would show up who you'd be like, wow, I can't believe they found them?
we
Shirley
need someone who's
MacLaine, maybe.
but like she's still around.
He was in
Like
Only Murders 2 years ago.
she's still around. We need someone who's like a hermit, who just like disappeared. We need like
Robert,
someone from like the golden age. Who's still alive from the golden age?
email us at slugfest@goldenary.com. We'll read it in 2 months and you can tell us who's still alive. Uh,
Um,
I
Like
don't know.
Eva Marie Saint, she went to the
Sure.
Oscars a couple years. Was that a couple years
It was at least a few years ago. I don't know.
ago? Like I mean, Rita Moreno's, she's in her 90s. She's still around. Like,
She's doing movies.
yeah.
Um, anything else here about this Oscars, Joyce, before we wrap it up? Pretty good.
Was this was this 3 hours and 45 minutes?
No, we're short on 3 hours, 40 minutes. I mean, I as a fan of Terms of Endearment, one of my favorite movies, I would say this is a good list of winners, but I guess your mileage may vary.
Yeah, I think it's the the winners themselves I think are overall good. I feel like this year and like the winners are maybe not remembered as like all-timers, maybe.
So, do you think we're the two sides? You're definitely more ordinary people, I think, than Terms of Endearment. I'm more Terms of Endearment than ordinary people. But do you think either of those, either of those have any kind of interest in modern times, and or one staying power over the other? None, right? Like,
No, because with ordinary people, everyone is like, this sucks because it beat Raging Bull. That's its thing. Like, I don't think anyone takes umbrage with Terms' win because I don't think they feel like it robbed any of these other nominees.
no. I do think it's just a fantastic movie. I guess the other thing I think with Terms is that a demerit for it to me, or a demerit I think maybe in the general culture. Broadcast news remains a movie that people, at least in media, like love. There are people obsessed with that movie who are like elder millennials or millennials even, right?
Yeah, and I think it's just because it's a different type of movie. Like the Terms is, you could characterize it as like a melodramatic soap.
It's
You
definitely a
know,
weepy. It's so funny because it's like I rewatched it literally like before, like a couple weeks ago, and it's like it's such an easy watch, and it's very breezy, and like the cancer diagnosis comes like pretty late in the film, and it's not like you're not watching a cancer movie until, oh wow, we're just watching this cancer movie for like 20 minutes, and then she dies, and then it's very sad. And so it's like most of the other time it's just like family movie with like a marriage sucks movie kind of, and like don't have kids movie maybe a little bit, and it's all really funny and fun, and then this cancer diagnosis comes in, you're like, oh, that's really upsetting. And I just love the way it comes in because it is just airdropped in, and it feels, again,
Mhm.
it feels like very much like reality
Yeah, I
because
think like
like,
the editing in the movie is really good too. We didn't really talk about the editing, but like
no, yeah,
the cuts, I think it knows exactly when to exit and enter a scene.
yes. And the way, if you go back, you should actually, if you haven't watched in a long time, I would say tell people to rewatch it. It was on Max, at least this is in April and May. It was on Max. I don't know if it
Oh
still
yeah,
is.
I watched it was it like I can't remember now, but it was on TV and I watched like the last half of it.
But like the way they cut into the scene when she's like sick and finding out her diagnosis, it is basically like you're just like in media res of her like being like, oh, I had some issues, and then all of a sudden the doctor being like, you have cancer, and it's bad, and it just is
And
like cut,
even when
cut,
they
cut.
cut in and out of give her the shot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so good. It's a very good movie. Next week we'll be back with another good movie as Best Picture winner, Joyce. Amadeus,
Amadeus, a classic.
a classic that I think has remained very relevant,
It's still liked. I don't think it's like hugely popular, but it's still a very well liked winner.
very well like winner, and definitely has like seeds in Oppenheimer. Certainly, it's like a
Mhm.
big comp of
Yeah.
modern movies. Social Network as well, I feel like would be another one, kind of a little.
Yeah, and then we'll also have Sally Field's second win.
Sally Field,
Hmm.
bunch of other movies. A David Lean movie nominated. This is funny to me. Like it's like, oh, like these people are still alive. These legendary people still alive, still doing stuff. Yeah, I'm excited for this one. It should be fun. So we'll be back next week with more Oscars playback. That one's hosted by Jack Lemmon. Joyce, can't wait. I can't wait to watch the clips.
And it's only 3 hours and 10 minutes.
Hell yes. Thank you. Thank you, Gregory Peck, producer Robert Wise, Gene Allen.
You could have watched an episode of Hacks with that extra 35 minutes there.
Fantastic. All right, just talk to you then. Bye.